Hello friends. Today we're going to talk about gastritis and H.pylori. Also, I'm sorry about the whiteboard being a bit small. I wanted to try and get a landscape, but it's too small. And it might be a bit dark because I wanted the cool background, but just go with it. Hopefully you can see enough on the video. I'll definitely record the whole thing and realize you can't see it, but oh well. Let me actually stand on this side. Oh, this is my worst side, so don't judge me. So the goal of today's video is to break down everything really simply, because everything's complicated and everyone tries to make it seem really difficult when it's actually really easy. Firstly, here is your stomach. All right. Here is your esophagus. Here's your stomach. Here's your stomach acid. Stomach acid should be pH of 1 to 3. And you also have your LES valve here as well, which stops acid from coming out. Gastritis, all this means is inflammation of the gut lining, right? This is your gut lining. Now you have different layers of your stomach lining, but the first one is the mucosal layer. You have a mucosal / protective layer in your stomach. Otherwise, right, you can imagine, this is just common sense, this stomach acid is fucking strong. It will burn a hole through your table, right? If I put stomach acid on your skin, it's gonna burn, right? It's gonna even burn through your skin. So you need something to protect it from interacting with other areas. This is why when it goes up in your throat, it's really irritating and actually can cause erosion. It's not good. So you have mucus, the mucosal protective layer to protect your stomach from said acid. And when that breaks down, right, this isn't always the case, but for most people it is. When that mucosal layer breaks down and you start getting irritation in the stomach, that's what's called gastritis, because there's inflammation going on of the gut lining. You've got acid, the very strong acidity, touching things that it shouldn't and interacting with things it shouldn't, and it's not fun, and we usually call that gastritis. Now, the reason that this is so poorly treated in modern medicine is because they don't even understand this, right? I don't know if any of you have had gastritis, but what they'll give you is PPIs. I don't know if you can see that, but PPIs. These are protein pump inhibitors, and they reduce your stomach acid, right? Your stomach acid is now reduced, right? But that might give you some relief from the stomach acid giving you pain, because now you have less of it, essentially. But you're not really dealing with the root cause, which is the gut lining. You're just dealing with the stomach acid, but not the gut lining, which is actually the issue. Right, so first of all, that doesn't really work. It might give you some relief short term, but I've helped people come off PPIs. Again, don't do that about your doctor's advice, but I've helped people come off PPIs and not get any gastritis anymore because we actually dealt with the root cause. Now, the reason I've included H. pylori in today's talk is because H. pylori is the leading cause of gastritis, right? If you have gastritis, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, have you been tested for H. pylori? And you don't even need to be tested for H. pylori because it's sometimes obvious if you have H. pylori, and I'll get into that in a second. But the three things that I would say most common cause of gastritis is H. pylori, which, if you don't know, is a bacterial infection, right, that you get from contaminated food and water. Oftentimes, if you go on holiday, you have some dodgy food. Morocco seems to be a big one, right? If you go and have the water from Morocco, right, it's very common you might pick up bacterial infection like H. pylori. So H. pylori would be the first one. Second one will be medications. So Accutane. So first one is H. pylori. Second is meds. And then third is diet and lifestyle. So medications, Accutane, NSAIDs, which is like ibuprofen, or I think Tylenol in the US. That wears down the mucosal layer of your stomach, and that causes gastritis, right? Also, if you just drink, if you're an alcoholic, then obviously that might wear down your stomach as well. Or if you have junk food every single day, that's also going to wear down your stomach, right? So these two go hand in hand anyway. Oftentimes when people have gastritis because they have H. pylori, even if you've done a test for H. pylori, I'm still not convinced that you're fully guaranteed, because a lot of people do, I don't know, what do you do? Antigen tests, stool tests, breath tests. If your H. pylori test comes back negative, I'm still like, it's still possible you have it, because it's not 100% accurate. That's what I learned. It's not 100% accurate. And the H. pylori can actually hide in the mucosal layer of your stomach. Now, this was originally thought to be the reason why a lot of people have H. pylori end up getting gastritis, because the H. pylori burrow itself into the gut lining. Now, I believe from the studies this is somewhat true, but the most important thing that is from the studies is that H. pylori lives in the stomach, right? Ugly bacteria. It wants to survive. Just like you and me, I want to survive, you want to survive. It releases enzymes. Now, forgive me, I forgot the enzyme was called, but it does release enzymes that neutralizes your stomach acid, right? So originally when I said your stomach acid should be a pH between 1 and 3, it's no longer that, it's now 6, 5, 7, neutralized, right? The issue with that is the neutralization of your stomach acid means that the mucosal layer of your stomach becomes less elastic, right? So it does a poor job at protecting your stomach, and that's when you start to get gastritis. Again, it's going to affect the mucosal layer, and that's going to cause gastritis. Again, you'll see, I've seen images and studies of how different bacteria move in the gut lining, and you'll see that H. pylori moves like rapidly in the gut lining and things like that. So we know that it burrows itself into the gut lining again to protect itself, and that's the real issue at hand. And that's one of the reasons why it can come back negative. Your test can come back negative because it's actually burrowed itself in the gut lining. Also, if you're on PPIs or if it's trapped in these things called biofilms, that's another reason why it could come back negative. Okay, you can see that you've just reduced your stomach acid with H. pylori, right? This happens, by the way. So if your stomach is not as acidic as it once was, what are you going to get? Bloating, right? You're going to get bloating because your food can't break down very well, so it's just going to sit and ferment. All right, some chicken is not going to be broken down if you have a H. pylori infested stomach. You're also going to be more prone to infections because the first line of defense of your gut is your stomach acid. If bad microbes come in, then they usually get killed off by the stomach acid, right? Which is obviously a very good function, so we don't get ill, okay? Now, you can see how this gets really messed up in modern medicine, right? Because, and I want to explain this as simple as possible for you, if you have H. pylori and gastritis, again, the main thing they're going to go to, let's just say gastritis, they haven't diagnosed H. pylori, the main thing they're going to give you is PPIs. So, but your stomach acid has already been neutralized. So not only now have you got a stomach acid of 6, 7, they've now lowered your stomach acid. So now you get even more bloating, you become even more prone to infections, your gut is even more messed up because you can't break down anything. And wonder why you feel more like shit, because the PPIs are never the solution anyway. They might make you feel better for a few days with the burning in your gut, but you should never take PPIs chronically. One of the worst things you can do, right? And then if you now have H. pylori, you're more prone to infections, right? You're not breaking down food very well. You can see how this loop just like gets you stuck in a bacterial infection, poor defense, bacterial infection, poor defense, bacterial infection. So, and then if you are diagnosed with H. pylori, what do they give you? Triple therapy, PPIs, and 2 antibiotics, right? 2 antibiotics to go in and kill your bacteria. Now, the most common question I get, which I really want to explain to you guys today is, actually, let me put this up. Excuse me. I'm hoping you can actually read this, by the way. I'm hoping this makes sense. Again, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I just want to make it super simple, because it is super simple. It's just that like common sense doesn't seem to be a thing in the medical world anymore. And again, I'm not a medical professional, so don't listen to me. I'm just a random guy on YouTube, but you can make up your own mind. What was I going to say? So triple therapy is what they currently use to kill H. pylori, or treat H. pylori, I should say. And the most common question I get, or the most common inquiry, or whatever you want to call it, is someone goes, Will, I've had H. pylori, I've done the triple therapy, and guess what? I still feel like ass. No wonder, because guess what? H. pylori has reduced your stomach acid, right? It has caused gastritis, and you've now just added antibiotics. So your gut microbiome, which lives in your large intestine, which I'm not gonna, your large intestine, you've now just essentially, okay, you might have killed the H. pylori, but you've just nuked your entire gut, right? You might have, it's like, I don't know, if you're in the army, and you're trying to, this might be a really bad example, but you've got like a really bad person, and you're trying to snipe them, right, the H. pylori, but instead you just blow up a building of 100 people, and now you've got a lot of collateral damage. That's essentially what antibiotics is doing. So you've killed 99 good guys. I mean, you've got rid of the one good guy, but now you're left with nothing, essentially. So you've just wrecked your entire gut microbiome. You still have a neutralized stomach acid, and you probably still have, because even though the H. pylori is left, it's still lasting damage that is created, all right? So that's not good. That's not good. So it makes sense. But someone is always confused. They're like, I've done the antibiotics H. pylori, but I still feel bad. I'm like, obviously, because look what's going on. And this is why reflux is very common as well. With H. pylori, you can feel a lump in your throat because it can infect the throat. You might get a coating on the tongue, metallic taste, all these things. And it can actually infect more. Like usually it lives in the stomach, but again, it infects the throat. It can infect all different places in your body. And the longer you leave it, the worse it can spread. And actually, a lot of people have H. pylori. I forget the exact statistic. Let's just say 45% of people actually have H. pylori in their gut, which a lot of the time it doesn't really matter because your gut microbiome is comprised anyway of 90% good and 10% bad, right? Bad. And it's fine to have a little bit of H. pylori because our gut microbiomes are built up with so many diverse microbes anyway. It's when it overgrows, and that's what we call a pathogenic overgrowth, that's when you start getting issues. Okay. And that can be for a few things, right? Low immunity, poor gut function, and again, as I say, come from holiday. Now, the reason this is so simple, like genuinely so simple, is because one of my first ever clients, which was ages ago, like this is just so funny how simple this is. Should I leave that? I'll leave the stomach. It's so funny how easy this is, right? Because my client, let's take her through. She went to Morocco. I didn't know it's from Morocco. She then started getting burning in stomach. Now again, you should always go to a medical professional first, and you should always talk to people. I'm not a medical professional, so don't listen to me, as I said before. And also guys, if you need help with this, by the way, not me to help you with your situation, just book the free discovery call in my bio. But Morocco, right? This is just common sense. She went to Morocco, got burning in the stomach. Morocco has a lot of contaminated food and water. The water there is notoriously not very good, right? So I was understanding her case and I was like, okay. She went to Morocco, a few months later, started getting burning in the stomach. So she was like, oh, I'm thinking of getting like a colonoscopy or an endoscopy it'd be an endoscopy to see if I have gastritis. Guys, if you have burning in the stomach, you don't need a camera to tell you that you've got gastritis, in my opinion. For most people, right? If you have a more serious case, again, always listen to your doctor. But if you have burning in the stomach, it's almost like you have gastritis, right? So she had gastritis, which was pretty obvious. And I was okay, and I thought, what was the leading cause of gastritis? Well, it's H. pylori. And it was convenient that she went to a place with contaminated food and water, which is the leading cause or the reason you get H. pylori, right? So we didn't even need to do any testing. We didn't need to do any bloods. We didn't need to do any endoscopy. It was just common sense of like, okay, this is what's causing it. So then I started doing some stabilization stuff, which was like, okay, let's heal the mucosal layer of your stomach. Slippery elm, aloe vera, marshmallow root, eucalyptus root, zinc L-carcinine. She was like, wow, I feel so much better. Obvious. And then I was like, okay, let's get you on a protocol for H. pylori, which is using some of the best antimicrobials, right? I don't use antibiotics, antimicrobials for what I do. An example of that would be, I always forget the name. Oh God. Well, we've got sulforaphane, which is broccoli sprouts. Mastic gum's the other one, which are really good. So we did this, and I'm not going to list all her symptoms, but she went from like a 10 out of 10 pain, couldn't go to events in work, I don't know, burning all the time, waking up miserable, literally to a 0 out of 10. Went back to normal life, eating pizza. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but you can do that. And that was how easy it was, and that took, what, like 4 months? With common sense. I'm not that intelligent, I just actually was dealing with the root cause of her stuff, instead of just piling on more PPIs, right? Okay? And the other thing I want to note as well is, a lot of times our stomach acid can be struggling from the H. pylori, either be neutralized or be lowered, again, if you don't know the PPIs. You never want to boost your stomach acid when you have gastritis or any burning in the stomach. You never want to do that, because then you'll get more pain, right? At some point in the timeline, you need to understand there's phases to this thing. So phase 1 might be, okay, let's heal the mucosal layer of our stomach. Phase 2, let's get rid of H. pylori. Then phase 3, we can rebuild our stomach acid once we know that the gastritis is gone. And that will be important to do. So oftentimes when people they have a neutralized stomach acid, Now, another thing I'm going to tell you as well is your stomach acid will govern your pancreatic enzyme release, your bile flow, your LES valve open and closure. So we call that the trifecta. So not only have you lowered your stomach acid, right, your stomach acid will govern the release of other things to break down your food, like enzymes and bile. So HCl, which is hydrochloric acid, the stomach acid, has gone down. Now that triggers less enzymes like pepsin, and which is the protein enzyme, and bile flow. So this little tweak and this little enzyme that H. pylori releases fucks your whole system up, right? So usually what I encourage people, if they're really dealing with bloating, we can't increase your stomach acid right now because you have gastritis. So oftentimes I'll just give them enzymes, and that gives them temporary relief. You don't want to stay on enzymes long term because, well, it might make your own release lazy. You don't want to rely on that stuff, but it's good in the short term. So that would be good for you to do. There was another thing I was going to say as well, but I can't even remember. But then later down, but also something that I like to do is I have a pH list that I give to my clients, which, for example, has like a list of mildly acidic, moderately acidic, and very acidic foods. So once we feel as though we've healed the gastritis, we'll then introduce like mildly acidic foods, see how you feel. If there's no burning, move up to moderate, then move up to extreme, because you never want to jump into extremes. And then the last stage of that would be using something called betaine HCl, which is just supplementing with HCl, which has a pH of 1. So the most acidic thing that you can do, but could be really effective at rebuilding your stomach acid. And then you won't need to rely on enzymes and bile and stuff like that. So I usually encourage people to do that at some point, although it's pretty harsh. You've got to make sure they're in a good position before you do that. Apart from that, guys, that's it. And guess what? It's common sense. Common sense. It's not more PPIs or Buscopan. It's understanding the basics of how your gut health works. Because, I mean, tell me in the comments, was anything that I said today complicated? No. It was all common sense. In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. And that's why I was able to heal this lady in 4 months. I think it was even 3 months, I can't remember. But it was so fucking easy. Because I was just thinking common sense. And we gave her the protocol. Right? And another thing people say as well is like, I understand testing. Testing is important. And if you have the finances and you have the time to do testing, it's always worth doing testing because it just takes a little bit of the guesswork out. But, you know, as I say with gastritis, everyone's obsessed with getting a camera down their throat to see if they have gastritis. Why do you need to know if you have gastritis? Why don't I just give you the solution for gastritis and then you can see how you feel? You then save the NHS 8-month wait list. You then save the money. You then save the traumatization of having a camera down your throat. And that's the smart decision this lady made, in my opinion. Because she was like, well, I can go, I can't get an endoscopy, which is, again, camera down the throat, because that's going to cost me, well, she said it was going to be an 8-month wait list on NHS, and then she went private, which was going to be like £400. Instead of spending that £400 on that, she just spent it, she used that money for us. And we got our results. And I can guarantee if you did the endo, you aren't going to get results like this. Because again, it would have been antibiotics, PPIs. Which, I mean, sometimes people do the H. pylori treatment and they feel fine, but there's a lot of people out there that don't, and this would be the reason why. Again, this goes deeper, and again, there's a whole load of world of stuff that we could talk about, but hopefully that gives you a good understanding. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. But yeah, bringing common sense back into gut health, thinking in systems. This is the system that we do, which is what I really like. And there's obviously other elements of this as well, but hopefully everything in today's video made sense. If there's any other videos you'd like me to make regarding anything in terms of gut health, I'm happy to do that for you. But yeah, guys, appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.